Alright guys, welcome back. I figured before I masked up and went into the airport I would go ahead and get this knocked out, but shipping out, I do have a pack, but all that's in there really is camera gear and my jacket. Figured this would be easier than fumbling through all the chargers and whatnot. But I've got my Wazoo belt and hat, and that's pretty much it, and we're heading out. See you on the other side. Thank you very much. What's up, man? I made it. Good to see you. Good to meet you in person, actually. You know what I mean? All right, guys, we made it to Denver. I had zero issues getting through security. Dustin here from Wazoo has picked me up, and we are headed to our survival location. Unfortunately, the plane didn't crash, so we can't do this for real. So we've got to kind of fake it a little bit. What I wanted this to be is a survival scenario, right? So let's say the plane crashed. Let's say that upon arrival, the zombies took over the airport and we had to make a mad dash to a safer location. Doesn't really matter what the scenario is. The point is that we're going to be using Wazoo survival gear to aid our survival.
I think what I really thought was cool about this scenario is it is this like deserted island, worst case scenario, almost like a romantic idea of the plane crash, that quintessential plane crash everyone thinks about. It's very rare, obviously, and it's unlikely this would ever happen to you. Anytime people have a plane crash, usually there's not a lot of survivors. Only a few examples of like when they survived in the Andes and some of these other examples of when you'd actually do that. We've always gone from the standpoint of designing for the worst case scenario. We want our equipment to be worn every day, to be used every day. I mean, hey, you got to stow some stuff on the top of your car. You didn't bring any cordage. Boom. You use Technora and
just convenience
stuff. It's on you.
Yeah, you got it. That's
so
right.
Everyday stuff, but can be used in the most worst case scenarios too, to get you out of a pinch.
I always call things like this type 2 fun, because it's generally speaking, it's not a ton of fun. Well, there's moments of fun during it, but there's going to be moments where it's not fun at all until after the fact. So I call this type 2 fun. It's going to be pretty cold. I checked the weather report. We're going to be at 7,000 feet of elevation. The weather report, the low one of the evenings is going to be 17 is what I saw. So there's that.
And when we design this stuff, people always ask me, well, why'd you put this in the kit? Like, why is there snare wire? I'm like, well, back it up. It's not snare wire. It's 24 gauge brass, semi-hard, malleable wire. So it is what you make it. It's a tool. Thinking things on their more component and characteristic level is why we added all these different elements. Some things are bendy, some things are stretchy, some things are wiry, and then they all kind of go together. That's why the fishing line is a thickness that fits through also the needle. Not a coincidence. Like, there's a lot of stuff that can be used for. Who knows?
Who knows, man?
Well,
oh, it's perfect. So what's up, man?
Welcome to Colorado.
Yep.
I'm Jason, Colorado Mountain Man Survival, the Survival University. We're out at our camp right now up outside of Cripple Creek, Colorado. This is where I run all my basic and intermediate classes. This is not where we're going to be at today, but this camp over here, we've got a few military tents set up, some structures, my fire pit. But we've got about 75 acres here that I own, that we run these classes on. We do anything from basic navigation, wilderness first responder, bushcraft skills, survival skills, rubbing sticks together to make fire, all the way up to modern skills. This is where we run it. We are going to go down to the other location, which is probably about 12-15 mile drive from here. It's where we run our advanced classes. It's a lot more rugged. Have everything we need here, warm tents, porta potties, water, stuff like that. But the other location is completely rugged. We don't have anything down there except for the land.
Who's this?
That is Striker.
Striker, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, everybody comes here to see me for classes. They come back to see this guy.
So Jason, I know you have a lot of. I noticed you have a lot of random heads laying around this place. What's your deal, man?
So
what are you dancing at night around the fire,
right,
worshiping something?
Yeah. What is it?
Because here's another.
What's that book with?
Lord of the Flies?
Yeah, Lord of the Flies. That's what we do.
That's what you do.
Lord of the Flies.
That's. I'm definitely glad that we're heading downhill to a lower elevation. You said we were around 9. We're heading down to around 7. The temperature has already increased by what, 5 degrees easily?
Nice. Yeah, we're at 60 right now.
Yeah, it's significantly warmer.
All right, so all I have is what I have on, and it's all Wazoo gear or stuff that I would typically wear on a hike. And then in my backpack, really all I'm taking the backpack for is for the camera essentials and equipment. And got my beanie, which I always take, a puffy, and rain jacket, which I could wear it right now. Honestly, it's just a little bit warm.
Yeah.
But otherwise, that's my natural layering system.
Yeah. I'm all about roughing it and toughing it and trying to make myself look more masculine than I actually am. But I brought clothing. It's going to be cold. It's supposed to get down, I think, 17-ish degrees, something like that, is from the weather report that I saw. And I brought clothing that's going to keep me from, getting hypothermia. So I'm not stupid. But other than that, I got nothing. In this pack, I've got my raincoat, basically, and I've got camera gear. That's it. I don't have any tools. I don't have any knives. I don't have any tarps or tents or anything. 0 issues going through security with this stuff. So, and it's not like it's not like I'm trying to sneak onto a plane with contraband. It's not trying to do that at all. It's not something that, is necessarily restricted. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Other than maybe the ceramic blade.
That's a little bit gray area.
Frowned upon.
Yeah.
But other than that, really nothing is, outside of the realm of legality.
I've gone through the TSA, and anyone can do that. There's actually no such thing as TSA approved, by the way.
Really?
That's not a real thing.
Oh.
That is a fake terminology. It doesn't exist. You can't submit it to the TSA agency and they'll be like, oh yeah, no, that's okay.
It fits, check.
Yeah. No, there's just guidelines that they have on there, but it's always up to the discretion of the TSA agent. So you just hope that Rhonda drank her coffee that morning.
Yeah.
Or that Phil's wife didn't yell at him that morning.
Yeah.
And because if they did, you might be losing something that is totally okay to take.
Yeah.
And they are okay taking that. I will say my track record, and I cannot guarantee this to anybody else because Wazoo can't guarantee that Phil had his coffee or that Rhonda had her coffee and that Phil didn't get yelled at. You can get anything taken away. However, I have flown probably 150 to 200 flights. I've flown to 4 different continents. That includes China, includes Africa, that includes Europe. I've flown to Israel, which is the highest
Very
security.
strict. Yeah.
Literally in the airport, they have an entire terminal to themselves, or an entire section of the terminal to themselves. And I've flown with all the gear that's in the adventure kit, which includes that ceramic folder. It's not a knife.
That's true.
It's a folder.
It's a folder. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of roughage that we're going to eat out here, is there?
All right, so I am going to shed off a few of these layers. Just a little bit of hiking, and we're already kind of getting a little sweaty. And of course, if you get wet, especially with something like cotton, that turns disastrous. I'm taking off my clothes to make sure we don't sweat too much, don't get everything wet. I think you do the same.
Yep. What are our priorities? We've kind of picked a flat-ish spot. The river is down below. We don't want to be down at the very, very bottom because the cold air is going to sink down there and it's going to be 5 to 10 degrees colder. And that's going to be pretty miserable because it's going to get in the 30s probably tonight. So that's going to suck. So we moved up a little bit. And then priority 1 is
Shelter.
some sort of shelter. And that includes some sort of flame. So gather some firewood. build some sort of shelter as long as we don't run out of daylight. I'm hoping we don't have any precipitation, but there's no guarantee of that.
We came in a little bit into the woods too, so we have a windbreak around us. If we were right a little bit further down from here, about 20 yards, it's really open, so that creates a wind funnel. All right, so one of the first things I'm gonna do, since we're gonna do a ridge line, I'm gonna go ahead and get my cordage out. So I like to stow it right here on the right side. I could actually take it out when it's on me, but I want to showcase it a little bit. So this is, I think, 25 feet to ignore unless I cut it. So we'll have cordage. I'll probably go ahead and get my duct tape out just because we're gonna be using a Mylar blanket. Duct tape's over here. We're gonna be using the Mylar blanket. We'll probably want to reinforce any corners that we either strap to or stake down.
In all of my winter jackets, I always stow stuff in the pockets because inevitably I forget the stuff if I don't. So I always put a pair of gloves in there. This is just a pair of wool mitts. And then on the other side, I've got a beanie. And it just so happens it is a Wazoo beanie. And it just so happens inside that Wazoo beanie, we've got a small little stowaway spot here. And inside of that, it just so happens I have a Mylar blanket.
You know, we have, I mean, I don't even know if we have 3 hours. We might have 3 hours until quote sunset, but we're down here in the valley. And if you do the old hand trick, it's not much more than a hand until that sun's gonna be behind and the temperature's gonna be dropping dramatically. So we don't have that. We have less than 3 hours. We have maybe 2 or 3, maybe 1 or 2 hours to do this. And so the Mylar blanket, as far as like pound for pound for a shelter and having something, I don't know if we would be able to get a nice lean-to that would actually be a water barrier in 2 hours.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. In my experience working by myself, it takes a minimum to have any kind of precipitation blockage at all. Minimum, I would say 3 hours.
We'll start off like this.
Something like this. What do you feel?
Oh, this is nice, man.
Will that work? Head uphill
This feels good.
until your feet get cold and then you do this. So. There we go. So I have 25 feet of cordage as well, and a small little bread tie that I just left on there. Save that for something.
For bread.
For bread. When the loaf of bread shows up. Cash is obviously a survival item, but in there I keep some duct tape. You know what I'm going to do to conserve my resource even more? I'm going to strip this duct tape down in half. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, that's what I do when all those happen.
For something that you could easily carry on your person every single day, it's kind of hard to beat these Mylar blankets. Wrap it around once that way, and the rest around the string. Yeah, that holds great.
What we call trail markers. We make these are exclusively made for Wazoo. And they're just really sexy bread ties. But one side is bright orange, you can see it during the day, and one is actually reflective, and we'll be able to see that at night. So, just like a bread tie. We'll see if mine comes off at 2 a.m. though.
Yeah, we'll see how. We'll find out.
We can probably find some nice branches, nice bark, and really enclose that, especially since we already have that foundation little stud here.
Yeah. This is going to reflect heat from the fire.
Yeah.
And if I get myself a little bit of bedding, I think I'll be okay for first night. We can always figure out something the next night. There's some firewood. And we don't have any saws or anything like that other than a small wire saw. Which if you've ever used a wire saw, they work really good for small tasks, but for like bucking up firewood. Good grief, I'm out of breath from that. Oh, jeez. Carried a piece of firewood from like 20 feet down the hill, and I'm out of breath. But anyway, what was I talking about? Wire saws, but they work good for small tasks on green wood, but for like bucking up wood and things like that, it's not really a thing. But for the most part, I don't really do that anyway. I just leave stuff long, and I feed it. So if this is my flame right here, I just as the wood burns, I just continuously feed the long piece of wood, and it just saves you a lot of energy and time.
We'll have this fire here. We're gonna have this rock helping radiate the heat out, and then we're gonna have it radiating down to us via those Mylar blankets. So I've got these spruce boughs up. They're not very comfortable right now, but they're a lot more comfortable than the ground. About 3 inches off the ground. So that's good. I've got a nice good amount of air. This would not be comfortable. You can see how big and knobby these are. And then these are pretty spiky. So on top of this, I think I'm probably gonna get some cedar. The cedar's actually around here is really soft. Is it cedar, Jason?
Juniper, right?
Juniper. Ash juniper, aka cedar. False cedar.
I think, right?
It's a false cedar. It's actually, they call it cedar, but.
The false cedar, yes, yeah.
The false cedar.
Yes.
So we'll put some false cedar on top of here. I think that's soft. And then we get the leaves as a final nice softening and kind of to kind of seal in our own body heat, right? All right, cool. Got some sappy hands there, dude. I do. Yeah, they're not typically this sappy.
Mm-hmm. We've got our shelter pretty much knocked out. We've got, or at least good enough for the evening. Fire's not going to be an issue. We'll be able to make that happen pretty quick. But I was getting pretty thirsty, so I figured and we're losing daylight real fast, so I figured we should probably come down here and get a little H2O cooking.
I'm gonna slice my Ranger band to a smaller diameter. Cool. Now I've got a smaller Ranger band, easier to stretch. We're gonna have our foil and our pre-filter, AKA a coffee filter. It's inside here. There's our foil. We don't really need that right now. And we don't really need our pre-filter either, because this water's relatively clear. It's not worth trying to rig up any elaborate pre-filtration just to get the sediment out. Definitely want to keep this dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in my pocket. Now, if you're in a weird place where you didn't have deep water and running water, you could pretty easily use this foil, shape it into a cone, dip it in the water instead of dipping this in the water. But in this case, we got good, nice running water. You squeeze the top and close it like this. It's approximately 1 liter of water. So it's no coincidence. These purification tablets are also 1 liter. One thing that might happen is once we open this up, purification tablet might be not a tablet any longer, but it's gonna be a powder, and that's okay. But if it's a powder, that's okay. We'll just pour the powder in there.
Yeah, not much of a tablet anymore, huh?
Yeah, after a while they just become powder, which, hey, maybe it's even better that way.
Yeah, it dissolves fast.
Ranger bands do well when you pre-stretch them. So we do like a little stretchy there. And just like you would do maybe a hair thing. 1 twist over, 2 twist over. It feels pretty tight. And sometimes I'll even do the last one where it's kind of flipped over top a little bit.
Gooseneck the top a little. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good term. I've never heard that, but I like that.
And you're sealed.
And I'm sealed.
In my cash belt, I do a similar setup. I've got basically the water kit here, but I've modified it slightly, and I'll show you that in a second. And then I've got a whole bunch of water tablets here, and I've also got a few in my hat, but this is enough to do, what's that going to be? That's 2 gallons of water, I think, that it'll treat right there. So that'll probably see me through this adventure, in addition to what I've got in my hat. But I'll show you what I did here. I've still got the Ranger bands on there, but in order to save some space, I wanted 2 bags. I took another kit apart, and now I've got 2 bags in case one should fail for whatever reason. I don't anticipate it will, but you just never know, right? So now I've got doubles. I can use this one. I can fill up both of them, have them both cooking at the same time, and save me from making multiple trips down to the water source.
This is a photon light, made in USA, waterproof, pretty indestructible lights. Really cool.
And really bright.
And super
surprisingly bright, yeah.
Super bright and last for a long time. And funny enough, they have several levels of lights, like 4 different styles of lights. We chose this model, which is one of the lower models, because it doesn't stay on. You have to depress it. This has the same amount of luminosity.
Illuminosity, is that a word?
No, I don't think it is. it's the combination.
Illuminosity is a word now. We're doing.
So the lumen on this is the same as those higher ones. So you get the same output with this light. But the reason we wanted to go with this one is because I tested those other lights. And when you have them in your hat, you have them in your belt, even in your pack, I had them go on and not turn off. And then when I went to go use them, the battery had been discharged. However, there's certain times where you just want to set the light down so you can work with your hands. So here's my little hack, what we're going to try and do. We're going to take the hardware kit, and I'm only going to take out...
You call this the hardware kit?
I do call it the hardware kit because I want it to be known as like a tool kit, because I'm going to use a split shot weight, and I'm not going to use it for fishing. I'm going to use it as a tool.
I've really been butchering the names of all your items, man. You gotta call me out on these things.
What'd you call this guy?
I probably called that the fishing sewing kit.
Probably.
Yeah.
At least you acknowledge they had a little sewing needle in there too. All right, so now we got a weight, and what that's going to do is it's going to give us a little trigger pinpoint right here in the center.
And you could probably do this with a rock too, like a small pebble or something.
Yeah, you could definitely do it with a rock. Yeah, like that.
Oh, I see what you're doing here. I like your style.
We'll see. We gotta get it to work, but I think a flat rock might be a little better. I just like the idea of using this stuff in the kit.
Yeah. That's perfect. And now we got a stay on feature.
So I took apart my paracord bracelet earlier. I have an adjustable light.
This is the hat that I wear every single day. I've rigged up my kit a little bit differently, and to each his own, I suppose. In here, I've got the same little light, and I've got it attached to a cord.
Oh, I love that cord.
To a string. So when I do have to use this, it's not something that I'm necessarily going to use every day, but when I do have to use this, I can just take this cord, pop it around my neck, and now I've got a small ferro rod, I've got the folding ceramic blade, and then I've got my light super handy around my neck.
So the tape kept on kind of coming undone a little bit. It wasn't holding it tight. So Ranger band to the rescue, huh? Just so I secure it at the top so it's pointing straight down, like so.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can do something like this. Let's see here.
How long do the lights you typically last? The battery?
I can't remember. I wish I had that number, but it's like 16 hours or something.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, I like left on.
Wow.
It's a long time.
Oh, okay. And now look at this ambiance, this mood that we've set here. This is so great. Oh man. I like what you've done to the place, you know? You've really brought the room together.
When we ever designed something, I had this extreme situation of like you're bobbing around the ocean for several days before you use this object. So would the thing
Still be a thing.
still be a thing
yeah.
after that most like extreme, and I'm talking salt water. So I literally did this. I made salt water, put it in a cup, and put this on our workbench. And when you first throw those fire plugs in, or whenever you put them in, they're gonna float. Those things, it's really cool the way it's been permeated with that petroleum. It floats, so they're not gonna sink. That's actually really cool. But I wanted to really test them underwater, so I put them in the cup of salt water, and then I put something on top of them and submerged them a couple inches. And honestly, I forgot about them for, I think it was almost 3 months. It was like 2.5 months, and I saw them back on my workbench. And so I got them out, popped one open. As soon as I popped it open, you could still see the inside was still dry and lit right up.
For tonight's fire, I could head out. I could have already prepped this. I'd get my tinder bundle, get it all squared away, and do the thing with just a ferro rod. That's absolutely 100% possible with these tiny little ferro rods. But, you know, why? I've got one of those little Cheetos, and I'm going to start this fire lickety-split with one of those, and it's not going to be a problem at all. So that's what we're going to do right now. And there's no need to use a whole one, in my experience. I could probably get easily 3 good fires out of one of these, but I'll just pop off a section of it, breaking it in half, or maybe like thirds. Save that for the next fire. These things light up pretty good too. I haven't used them a lot, but the few times that I have used them, like that's pretty much all you need to do right there. Can you see that on camera good?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. Just fuzzed up a little bit. And then I'll take my ferro rod that's around my neck. And the ground here is so dry. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like at home, you got to build kind of a platform to keep it up off of the cold, wet ground, you know, and make sure everything's going to work. And make sure you're really careful with it in the beginning stages of its life. But here, it's like, good grief, man. You just pick up any old stick on the ground and light it up. Look at that. Like one strike, basically. This is a brand new one, so I had to get the coating off the top of the ferro rod. But after that, the thing lit right up. And now, I'm going to take this block of wood, stick it right there, and start laying in some twigs. No rush, because that little thing burns forever. How long do they burn? Do you know?
7+ minutes, probably.
Wow.
They told me.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I'd have to, we didn't do an actual
We should test one,
time
yeah.
test on that. But they do burn a long time.
Yeah, I honestly never use one in full. It's just so wasteful. I always just split them into little small pieces.
Yeah, exactly. No need to use the whole deal. This is nice. Somebody camped here and sawed this with something. See that?
I can't see it from here, but I believe you.
Yeah, it's cut flat. You and I are similar. I think we like to challenge ourselves and rub the sticks together and do the thing, you know, do the struggle, you know, and do the primitive style of things. But for real, if this was for real, you don't want to be messing around with that crap. Like you don't have time for it. You won't have the energy for it. You might be injured. It's just a really challenging thing that you just don't have. You just shouldn't have to do if you're just a little bit prepared, you know. And we're not. It's not like we don't have all the gear we would want if we were coming out here and could be camping out for a few days. Like this is not even close to what we'd want to be comfortable. But we have the stuff that we can carry on us every single day without even thinking about it, and it will make your time much less miserable. And I think that's kind of the goal, right? So what's your plan for the rocks?
I'm going to toast them up, get them nice and toasty, and I'm going to put them by my feet. We don't have a bichon frisé, a little bed dog, so I'm going to have a bed rock. And I've learned that on several occasions. I learned it the hard way, where I was just freezing, and then you know, the old hot water. I'd not tried the hot water bottle thing, and then I tried it one night after suffering for several nights, and it is a game changer. So we don't have water bottles necessarily, but we got rocks.
it is reading 70 degrees inside of our shelter here with our fire going. This is not sitting right next to the fire or anything. It's kind of just where my head would be when I'm sleeping. Reading 70 degrees, and it is probably in the mid 50s, I would say, outside of our shelters. The Mylar blankets, I have mixed feelings about Mylar blankets. They're very fragile. You gotta be extra careful with them, and they're really kind of one-time use. You're never gonna pack them back up into that tiny package that it came in. It's just, I don't know how they do that, but it's like magic. But anyway, so it's really one-time use, but it's really one of the only shelters of any real size that you can carry easily in a pocket. Can you put up like a trash bag in your pocket and use that for shelter? Of course, but it's still pretty bulky. It's nothing like this. This thing was in my hat, my beanie, and it's tiny. So, and it will keep the rain off you for an evening. And it definitely is reflecting a ton of warmth from the fire. I can put my hand here right next to the Mylar, and I can feel that heat reflecting off of the Mylar on the back of my hand. Pretty significant. It's so it's a real thing. I mean, if you ever wondered if the Mylar blanket deal is kind of a gimmick, it's not. It works.
Man, this is cozy. I'm snug as a bug in a debris bed rug.
So nice. Made it here safely on the airline. No issues going through security, none of that stuff. So that was good. And then got to the mountains and set up camp, and we only took us probably maybe, what do you say, 3 hours kind of to get situated, something like that. And I guess we're just going to kind of keep this fire going all night, bed down, and try to get a couple hours of sleep in between stoking the fire and waking up shivering kind of thing. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Night night.